I am trouble. I'm a biker. I'm everything that's wrong with society. I'm a shifty-eyed intellectual motorcycle rider. Hey, welcome back. Today we're going to turn this into totally so much drama. Ooh, it's chilly. Very chilly. Oh, my turn signal's still on. Self-canceling indeed. Hey, welcome back. Today, we're going to talk about drama. I knew a woman once who was all drama all the time. Everything she did was frantic. I mean, it was all an emergency. It was all falling apart at any given moment. And being on the outside, if you tried to tell her, hey, you know, you're getting worked up over nothing, she'd look at you like you had two heads. After a while, I just figured she has to have the drama. Now, drama, conflict, especially interpersonal conflict, it's going to come to us. That's part of life. And we all say we hate it. I hate drama. But people say they hate it, and then they won't let it go. Unfortunately, a lot of it is avoidable if we would just talk to each other. People talk about other people behind their backs, and it's just old hen stuff. Old hen stuff. Bunch of cackling old hens. Now, am I immune? No, I'm not. But I'm working on it. That is not what I want to do. And if anybody catches me, they should stop me. Hey, you know, you don't need to be talking about this other person behind their back. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to talk about somebody. A couple people, actually. But I'm not going to name them. So that makes it a little different. I'm not calling them out. Unless they know who they are and they happen to be watching, and I doubt it. So I heard the other day about somebody talking to somebody else about somebody else, and I guess they were saying that, you know, oh, they bring drama with them and they cause trouble and do these things. I'm not going to get into what these things are because that's closer to calling somebody out, and I'm not trying to do that. It's really the big picture that we're trying to get here. So they were talking about somebody else, they do these things and blah, blah, blah. And I know both of these parties that are involved in this. Well, I guess I know all three, the person who was being told too, but I know the person who was talking and the person who was being talked about. Now, the person who was being told all this stuff isn't even part of the conversation. They're essentially a stranger. And yet we've got somebody who is, I mean, legally, is it slander? If you call somebody out for something that's not true and you mention their name, is it slander? I don't know. I don't really care. The legal ramifications aren't the big problem. The big problem is that I know the story, and the person who's being accused isn't even being given a chance to defend themselves or correct the story. And really what I think happened is that this came from yet another party who got their feelings hurt a long time ago. What they got their feelings hurt over isn't even relevant anymore. And still this story's going around. It's not just fake news, it's old fake news. And I thought, you know, you really shouldn't be talking about this other person. It's not fair to them. It doesn't give them a chance to clear themselves. One of the things I understand to be the case in motorcycle clubs, and I don't know, but this is just the rumor mill, is that if there's a conflict, it's addressed. You go to that person, you straighten it out, and it may come to fisticuffs, but when it's done, it's resolved. And everybody involved understands it's resolved. And in theory, it's not mentioned again. And we're not talking about a motorcycle club here, so chances are good it's not going to come to fisticuffs. And it's a shame because if the gossiper had simply gone to the person who they were talking about, it might get straightened out. I mean, it's aggravating for me because I know all of these people and I know the situation. I'm aware of it. Let me tell you a little story. When I first started getting into the computer field, I went for a job, didn't get it, and for the next year and a half or so, I worked one of the crappiest jobs ever. I had to go all the way across the state every day. It was in New Hampshire, so that involved the snow a lot. And I managed to kill, I don't know, 3 cars? It was a brutal job. I showed up my first day sick as a dog, throwing up out in the woods, still went to work. It was important to me to keep this job. So at some point, my daughter was born, and I took a couple days off, and I arranged it with some of the people in the shop. I thought the appropriate people. It was like the owner and a couple of the programmers that I think were partners. And I had arranged to take a couple days. It wasn't long, just a couple days. Before I left, we hired a new office manager who I don't think really appreciated the work I was doing because she couldn't account for it. And I don't know if she understood it or not, but she didn't like me. So when I got back, she said, "You're fired." The reasoning being, I didn't check with her first, and I was just AWOL, which was not the case. Didn't matter. My days were numbered as soon as she was hired anyways. So 2 weeks later, I was still looking for a job. It was late at night. My newborn daughter was in bed. She was all kinds of colicky for the first 6 months. She was in bed sleeping, and my wife was at work or something, Bible study, I don't know. She was at work. She was gone. And the first major snowstorm of the season was hitting at night. And the phone rang. And they're like, "Hey, this is such and such a company. Are you still interested in that job?" That I had applied for like a year and a half before. Conveniently, yes, I am. So they're like, "Can you come right now and interview?" And I just felt this stabbing pain. And I'm like, "I'm really sorry, I can't. I don't have anybody to watch the baby. She's sleeping. I can't leave a newborn in the house. It's snowing. My car wasn't the best." So they came out and interviewed me, hired me on the spot at my house. That doesn't happen, but it did. So I showed up to work, worked a week or two, and found out that the guy that hired me was leaving the company. And the guy who was going to take his place as service manager was the guy that took my job a year and a half or so before. Which, I wasn't angry. It was just one of those things. Stuff happens, right? Now, the owner was away for about a month. And when he came back, he instated, just for simplicity, we'll call him Otis. He instated Otis into the service manager position. And he said, "Your first job as service manager is to fire that guy." We don't like him. Otis takes the bold step for somebody who just got a management position. Takes the step of, "Nope, I'm not going to fire him." They said, "Well, we don't like him. We don't like him. We don't think he's doing a good job." And he said, "Well, he hasn't worked for me yet. Give me 30 days. So he calls me in the office. He said, "Look, here's the deal. They want me to fire you. I told them to give me 30 days, and here's a list of things that need to be corrected." Now, I didn't even know about these things. I didn't know they were issues. I mean, he could have just fired me. "No, it's not working out. Get out." So he gave me this list, and it was stuff like, they don't like me wearing sneakers because it was kind of a dress-up position. They wanted me to have a more reliable car, which is kind of a big request, but, you do what you got to do. And a couple of other things. I worked for Otis for years at that company and at another company. Did I work for him at another company? Maybe. At one point, he worked for me. And 25 years later, even though I don't talk to him because, we've lost touch, I still consider him a friend. And I would not be where I am today if it wasn't for Otis. So this is why communication is important. If you got a beef with somebody, speak up. It's like in this case, if somebody would just ask this other person about the incident, I think they'd find out that there was no issue. That the issue stems back to somebody who got their feelings hurt. And now, years later, and dudettes, really, years later, it's still an issue, apparently. And I can't address it with any of the parties because, quite honestly, I think that puts yet another person in the middle of things who doesn't need to be in the middle of things. I don't want to add to the drama. Sometimes you just got to keep your mouth shut. I was on a ride once with a group. One of the members of the group started talking about one of the other members of the group to me about this, that, he's so slow and he can't do this, he can't. And I thought, you really shouldn't be telling me this. Even if it's true, you shouldn't be talking to me. You should be talking to them if you're going to talk to anybody. Unfortunately, I didn't say anything. In hindsight, I should have. But I like to be a listener. I like to think that people can tell me stuff and have it be safe. Identifiably safe. I'm not calling out names. If you're watching and it fits you, well, you probably know who you are. I'm guessing that you're not watching. But, talking behind somebody's back and talking, down-talking somebody behind their back, trashing on them, it's schoolyard nonsense. I think this is exactly the drama that people say they hate. but we seem to be wired to do it. Because we don't seem to be able to stop, you know, like walking tabloids. If I do it, I would really like to stop, because it's ugly when I see it on other people. It's got to be ugly when I do it myself. I'm not immune to it, but that doesn't make it any less wrong. I'm guessing in this situation it wouldn't turn into fisticuffs. That's just not the kind of situation it is. So, you know, talk to people. You got an issue with somebody, go tell them. You know, from a biblical standpoint, before you bring your offering, if you've got problems with your neighbor, you're supposed to go make it right. I don't think there's anything that'll tear a group apart faster than backbiting. It's just old hen stuff. It's crazy. I know that person has no chance to defend themselves, no chance to stop the rumors. But I'll tell you what, I don't care what the rumor mill is saying. I'll ride with them because I know them. And to the best of my knowledge, all that stuff is nonsense. And you know, if there's any blame to be cast, it would likely be on that original person who never bothered to address it, never said anything to the other person. And it's a shame, because I could almost watch as the damage was being done. You know, from a psychological standpoint, and I'm not a psychologist, psychiatrist, or anything else. I did have some psychology classes in high school, very long time ago. But people are pretty much the same. I get backbiting. I understand. You know, we want to build a consensus. And if possible, we'd like to put blame on somebody else for things that we're feeling. I think a lot of times it's insecurities and frustration. Address it. Get it out of the way. People. People are the problem once again. Man, traffic is just a parking lot. I was going to do some really nice riding video on the way into work this morning, for those of you who can't ride right now. But traffic's kind of a parking lot, and I've been sitting most of the time, so I'll get out. Wow. Just riding here behind Cheech and Chong. Come on, come on, come on. So that's the talk I had for today. And yeah, I guess it's preaching, but I needed to get it off my chest, and this is the only way I know to do it without going and stirring up a hornet's nest. And I don't want to be part of the problem. Next thing you know, they'll be talking about me behind my back. It's cold out here, dude. My fingers are cold in these gloves. So that's all I've got. Thanks again for joining me and for listening to me babble. Hopefully, if you find yourself saying stuff like, "It sounds so, it's such and such and such and such, and I heard that," you'll think of me. Probably need to watch it a few times myself. I hope you have a terrific week, and I will see you next time. Ride safe and take care.